I'm Bianca.
And I'm SJ.
This is ScreenGab. Today we are covering Hidden Figures.
Liked it.
I like this
Actually
movie a lot
loved
too.
it.
Yeah, this is a really fun movie. It was nice to see. It's nice to see people actually overcoming adversity, and like I feel like I just have a lot of experiences.
It's a more positive. It wasn't all like about
this movie's like super upbeat.
oppression is difficult, even though it totally was. But it was like,
and is.
Look how smart we are and how we triumph in the face of this, and we're so awesome. And I was like, oh my gosh, you are, and it's amazing. And I didn't know about you before, and now I do, and I'm so happy.
Yeah, the focus was on their intelligence and what they enjoyed and them persevering, and it was nice to see it land in a good place. I think I have a lot of experiences watching movies with black actors and characters where it's just like awful things happen the whole time, the movie ends and it's awful. And so this is nice, and it was not only that the film showing that I'm getting what they wanted, but also it was just a very upbeat film considering the topic. I thought it looked really beautiful too. Like the color was really like, I don't know if that's saturated or what, but it's just like very intense. I liked it.
But I mean, just the seeing like women excelling in STEM fields, and then on top of it, not just women, but black women, and not just black women, but like in the 1960s, like every layer of like, it's just a great story to be told. It's a true story.
Yeah. It's a true story. I know.
Although, I mean, I don't know how like historically accurate every single thing
is. I was just about to say. Also, it was like the film ended. One of my first things was like, I wonder if these women were actually friends or if it was just convenient. Because like,
surely they at least knew each other, but I don't know.
But they also depict like a lot of black women working at NASA, and so it's just like, you know, you can definitely get to know everybody, but not like necessarily that much.
Yeah.
So
but I mean, I was okay with that kind of.
Good job, Bianca.
No, I didn't look up anything either. I was okay with like the maybe a little bit unrealistic moviness of it because it's a movie, and there's a lot of other movies we have about other, you know, stories in history that we know are not like 100% accurate, but
all movies.
Yeah. This wasn't more or less than other ones. So, I was fine with it. Also, it was just really cool to see. Maybe they weren't really all three best friends. They didn't really have, you know, dancing parties in the kitchen, but I really liked that scene, so I'm glad it was in there.
Something I noticed about this movie was something we talked about with Rogue One as well, was the different ways people approached trying to change things, trying to reject oppression.
Because of, like, the scene where Mary's husband at the picnic is like, oh, like, no one's just going to give it to you. Like, you shouldn't even try. Like,
he seems much more interested in being, like, aggressive. Yeah. And not trying to move through channels that are already there. And it's, like, granted, I mean, it's something that is spoken of, I believe, by Janelle Monáe's character. Is just, like, you get to the finish line and then move the finish line. Yeah. And that's what it's like to try and move through, like, a, quote, proper channel that's already there. But it's something that even though she's frustrated by, she still chooses to do.
Right. And, like, when she goes to the court to, you know, get permission to take these night classes to become this engineer, like, she doesn't, like, use an argument of, like, hello, I'm a person, I'm a citizen, I should have these rights, which is sort of, like, at all. She's just like,
she
you know.
found a way to relate to him and use something compelling to the judge that he could relate to as well. Right. And it's like we are having very different experiences, but we do have this shared experience.
Yeah, which I think it was just very different strategy than maybe what I would have thought, but but she was successful. Yeah. And so I think that, to me, that illustrates what you were talking about, like that she approached it in a different way than maybe other people or her husband wanted her to, but she achieved her goal.
Oh, I like that in the very beginning, the police escort, he was definitely, he was just aggressive towards them, and he didn't know anything. Like, they were just on the side of the road, not moving or doing anything, and he was immediately like, what are you guys doing? And then he finds out that they work at NASA, and he's just, like, happy to escort them to NASA. It's like high-speed chase. It was a fun way to start the movie, and kind of as well see the different personalities of the characters, because they definitely
it really set them up like
very different people
really well.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know that ever happened, but I love that scene, and it does such a good setup of the three of them and their reactions, especially like while Mary's like speeding, and Dorothy's just like, oh man, and then what's her name? Main one, Catherine, is like, oh, I'm taking the bus next time. This is too nerve-wracking for me. By the way, all three of those women gave excellent performances, and I don't even know if I can pick a favorite.
And this is an example of what I was speaking of earlier about seeing lots of movies where, I mean, certainly black people, but also just lots of people of color, like, getting credit taken from them or just getting the short end of the stick for no good reason, was I was so concerned after she did all that work. I forget what that equation was.
The one where she proved that, like, that the Atlas or the Redstone was going to fail or something. Like,
yeah, and then I thought that, I just know him as Sheldon, but that character, I thought he was going to take credit for it, and I was so scared. And he doesn't, spoiler, I kept having to remind myself, like, Bianca, if someone takes credit, like that, he could take credit for because he's allowed to have the information that she's not supposed to. It gets beyond that where he just, like, doesn't know the answers, like when she finally gets let into the boardroom, and so all of the other people in the boardroom need to know how this is going to work. And Sheldon can't do it. And so it's just like up to her. But I just kept having to remind myself, if someone's going to take credit for this, they're either going to have to continually find a way to take credit for her work without her being like, hey, after a while, you know? Or also take credit and then try to replicate it from then on, which probably not going to be able to do.
I mean, he does take credit for her work when they type
on
those reports and she keeps putting her name and he's like, computers don't write reports, this is my report. And she's like, well, it's my work, I did all the numbers and I typed the whole thing up. But then at the end they had the one that she did, or that they
both did. I think to me it felt like all the characters we had been introduced to and knew up to that point that we actually get into the boardroom, it's like everyone knew it was her work, and so that to me was like good enough. But like I definitely understand what you mean, because then it's just like anything outside of that, it just looks like he did all the work.
And, you know, even when you step back from just the context of the scenes in the movie, like, obviously other people took credit for her work because we never heard of her. Well, I don't know if you did. I never heard of her before this year. Nobody was saying at the time, like, oh, these women doing these calculations were a major part, an integral part of our success in the space program, but we just didn't want to talk about them. Oh.
Mahershala Ali.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it either, but loved him.
I love his face. I just, whenever I see him in anything, even in Luke Cage, I just like, I love his face. He just, I want to hold his face. Also, he's like, you really like handsome, like, in the army, and like, you know, and he kind of like messes up with her, but he, you know,
that was one of my favorite
humble
scenes.
and apologizes.
Okay, every scene in this movie was my favorite, but also every scene with him, and also like when they first meet at the picnic or whatever, and he's like, you know, accidentally, whatever, he says, unintentionally insults her, let's say. Yeah. Because he's like, oh, I didn't know they let women work at NASA on the math stuff or whatever, and she's like, yes they do. It's not because we wear skirts, it's because we wear glasses. And I love that line, but then I also love later when they're doing dishes and he's like, I think it's about time I kissed you because I think you still want me around or you would have kicked me out by now. It's just really sweet and romantic, even though it's not like the main story at all, but it was, I just really appreciated their story.
Yeah, he was just like, he's a cute character. Well, that was all my good stuff. I think it did a good, I think that this movie did a really good job of depicting systemic oppression and like what that looks like, that it's all these little things. Intricate.
And, I mean, major things too, like when Mary Jackson is trying to become an engineer and she applies for the program and she's qualified and they're like, oh, we changed qualifications. Oh, you have to have a degree from this school. And it's like, and you're not allowed.
This random, like, she could probably learn it on her own, getting information from the library. Like the other
and she's already working there anyway.
And it's just like, ugh.
But then also just the little things of like, oh, there's no bathroom for you here, and oh, after you start working here, we put another coffee pot. Someone puts it, like, who knows? But nobody takes it down. Yeah. Nobody says anything.
Yeah. Until Kevin Costner comes in. He removes the sticker.
Yeah, but you know, like his motivations aren't necessarily that pure either. Like we talked about this a little earlier.
Yeah, I felt like with Kevin Costner's character, it's this not considering breaking down oppression until the oppressed person or group is of use to you. Like, you're not willing to treat them as an equal until it's like, oh, it's kind of necessary that we have you.
Yeah, because it's affecting him at that point. So it's not that he's like...
And I remember what I talked to you about is like, you know, it's good that you're finally being acknowledged and that people are getting to see you as a more complex person. Should it really have to get to that point for that to happen?
And, I mean, they're pretty different, Kevin Costner and Kirsten Dunst's characters, but they're both complicit, I guess. And I really liked that Kirsten Dunst's character was in the movie, even though she's kind of one of the villains, I guess. Just her attitude of like, oh, that's NASA for you. Mm-hmm. They're not gonna make you a supervisor.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't make the rules, but blah blah blah. And I mean, because I think a lot of people have that attitude, whether they like state it that blatantly or not. This is just how things are, and
not willing to contest at all.
Yeah, and not willing to like admit that she's part of it, that she's actively keeping these other people oppressed. I really like that scene in the bathroom when she's like,
I was about to say that.
She's like, I have nothing against you people, and Dorothy's like, I know, you probably believe that, and just walks out. And the next thing you really see them interacting is that she has like given her, or made her super. Not that it was her power, but whatever she did behind the scenes to get
that she did have the ability.
Yeah, if
to
she
help
wanted
her
to,
out.
because again, it affected her because she wanted her girls to be in that computer room with learning the programming and stuff.
IBM. Yeah.
Right, like, also, I forgot to mention this earlier as another favorite scene, speaking of Dorothy, I love when she steals the library book. And, like, the whole thing, that whole arc that she's like, I need this information because things are changing, and I'm gonna educate myself and stay ahead of the game, and train all my employees.
All of the women she supervises, even though that's not her title and she's not paid for it.
Yeah. And then when they offer her the supervisor, or, to come work with IBM or whatever, and she's like, well, I'll only do it if I can bring my girls, like, I love that scene where she's marching down the hall with all of them behind her because she's so inspirational.
You're all coming with me. It's not this thing of like, well, now that someone's given me this opportunity, I'm going to step all over you. It's like, now that someone's given me this opportunity, I'm going to do my best to extend it to you as well, so we can all benefit.
I loved it.
Yeah.
OMG.
The library scene.
Yes.
I was not aware of all of the places that were segregated. Like,
Yeah,
I noticed
I had
in
no
the
idea.
courthouse that there seemed to be segregated, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. I never thought about how a library would have separate sections.
Yeah.
And
me
of
neither.
course, the part that is for, quote, colored people, like, has less books or doesn't have new stuff in it. It just, it was weird. And I loved how she was like, you don't touch my boys. Like, they didn't do anything. You need to leave them alone. To the guy, to the library security guy, I was like, yeah, you leave them alone. I do have to say, like, if anyone who's listening, you've probably seen a pattern at this point where we kind of just do good and bad and, like, straggler ideas at the end. But my bad section is really, really small, so that's great. I did want to say, though, that its line made me cringe when Kevin Costner beats down the sign over the black women's bathroom. And he's like, there, we're all equal here, whatever. And then he, like, turns around to the whole group and he's like, at NASA, we all pee the same color. And I was just like, ugh. Like, I just felt kind of like trying to mirror the we all bleed the same color. And I mean, I feel like that's
not quite as poetic
totally,
when it's pee.
Yeah, well, also, I feel like that's not constructive. Like, I think when you try to frame it that way, you're not considering the obstacles that are in the way. You're just, like, already visualizing the finish line. It's just, like, that's not constructive. It's true.
But it's not why it was segregated in the first place.
Yeah, and I can also say that everyone peeing the same color depends on how hydrated or dehydrated everybody is. And I seriously doubt everyone at NASA is synchronized in how much water they drink. And then further, like, that their body works with that water the same. I'm just saying, they don't all pee the same color.
Yeah. I think that scene, like, I mean, I appreciated that it was, like, movie drama, but I wasn't sure, like, how historically accurate it was either.
And also, if that's something anyone would observe. Like, they never talked about how... Well, plus, it seemed as well, like...
I really liked the scene right before that, when they're like, where have you been? Why are you never here? And she's like, I have to go half a mile to get to the bathroom. Like, I loved that scene.
Yeah.
The tearing down the bathroom sign was a little bit, like, melodramatic, I guess. But that would be my biggest, like, negative about the movie, was some of the things that felt like, I don't know how accurate this is, but they're not that annoying. But, like, John Glenn being like, I want to shake everybody's hands. And I don't know if that happened or not. Like, I hope so, but I don't know.
That was
like,
the
he was
thing
just very, like, I'm a blonde all-American astronaut, and I'm not racist. And I'm like...
Regardless of whether or not he had racist ideas or values, I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, psh. It
Right,
was the,
it's
like,
not important.
he was so, like, idyllic in, like, the way he looked, the way he behaved, like, that it was just like, see, this, quote, perfect person thinks that these people should be able to work here.
Yeah.
And he's willing to shake their hand and da-da-da. And, like, honestly, I felt that was good.
It was
and
good
that
for
was
the
bad.
movie. I
think that I do think, though, that it shows, because I think people can be really influenced by that. Like, if they see this, quote, idyllic person, I suppose, doing their part to break down barriers, like, well, maybe this isn't so bad. But it's also just, like, anybody, regardless of the way they look or behave, should do this. Come on.
Right. Like, the scene where it's, like, the press conference with the astronauts, with all the potential astronauts, and like, who wants to go first? And everyone raises their hand. And then he raises both hands.
And he's in the middle. And he's just got that grin on his face. It's like, oh my god, what is happening? Too much.
But, you know, they're really minor complaints.
It was so... It happened so many times with his character. I'm just like, you know what? I think that they just looked at this and they were like, this is obnoxious, but it's totally intentional. We're going with it. That part where it's before he's launched into space, and he's making that call to Kevin Costner. He's like, I want that girl to do it, to do the math. And it's so, like, enthusiastic and just like, yeah. I was just like, what is happening? Like, it's kind of cheesy and, like, weird.
I was kind of expecting there to be more of a score. There really wasn't. There was a soundtrack.
You know, I actually just read a Pharrell Williams interview earlier today. And so he talked about doing the soundtrack or score with Hans Zimmer. And he talked about how...
I guess I just didn't notice the music very much then.
Well, he said that when people think of film scores, they typically think of, like, European or Euro. He specifically said Euro for the way it sounds. And he said he felt like since it was 1960s and this movie was about black women in that time period, he really wanted it to have some elements of that, I suppose, the common style people associate with being a theatrical film score, but to have it be more dominantly just like black people's music. And he did talk about, though, that,
so
like...
it was Pharrell and Hans Zimmer did it together? Okay, I didn't know that. Because the orchestra is kind of another hidden figure in the movie.
I just realized today, too, that hidden figure's like a figure, like a math figure.
Yeah.
I was like...
It's a perfect title.
I saw this movie almost a week ago at this point. I've known about this film for a very long time. And it just occurred to me today, January 20th, 2017... that the figures part of the title is, like, math figure. I had no idea.
It's a double meaning.
Yeah, I know. It's both. I just thought it was a singular meaning. So, yeah.
But I love it because, like, you don't think about the math. I mean, sometimes you do, but usually when you think about, like, space and rockets and stuff, you're like... Rockets
fire.
And astronauts, yeah. But there's, like, a lot of math that goes into making that possible. Yeah. And you don't really think about that. It's in the background.
Yeah. The
same way... These women doing the calculations were in the background, and people didn't really necessarily think about it, but they were super necessary, and I just love this movie. I hope we get more movies like this.
Yeah.
I love that it dominated the box office its first 2 weeks. Please, dear movie makers, make more movies like this. Like, that was one of my first thoughts as we were walking out, was like, what are other... people, mainly women, that I don't know about that, like, contributed in significant ways
to anything.
Yeah.
Literally ever.
And when do we get their movies? I really liked it. I liked all the women. It should win all the awards. Mm-hmm. Maybe not all. I mean, like...
It's worthy of awards.
Well, I mean, like, I didn't like any of the actors as much as the actresses. So, I mean, they were fine. Like, everyone was good in their roles. But I just really liked the 3 women.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy this movie when it comes out. Thanks for joining us. We will be doing another one of these soon.
We don't know what movie yet, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks for hanging out. You check us out on social media. It'll be in the info. Well, I guess you will hear us sometime soon.
Bye.
Bye.